Fuse.cloud, F-U-S-E. All right, before I tee up Luke's, here's the deal. I'm listening to Sankey talk about what's going on. Ross Dellinger's writing about it every 5 minutes, and Ross does a great job. Mississippi State grad, now with Yahoo, one of the best college football writers in the country and super connected. As far as what the new format's going to look like, and there's a lot of pushback. I get it from the ACC and the Big 12 and the G5 and possibly Notre Dame, but I think they'll always be, part of the deal. Here's my deal. Now that we've got the power, so for what, 200 years, the East Coast and the West Coast and the Midwest made fun of the South. Now we're the place to be. Quality of life, people making tons of money. We got water everywhere. We got the SEC. People want to go to SEC schools. I mean, it's a ton of fun. We've got the players. We got the money. We got the tailgating. We got the college towns. We got the condos. We got beautiful women. Cool. It's all happening. We got the same software technology as someone has in New York and LA. All right. And now everybody's like, well, you need to give. Well, why do we have to give? The Yankees in the Midwest and the West Coast didn't give to us. Why do we have to give? Or do we just say tough blank? I like what Sankey said. No, we're gonna think about our conference, because it was funny back when people took national championships from Coach Paul Bear Bryant, the Midwest and Northeast media that voted on it in the AP poll. They laughed about it in their offices in Chicago and New York and Detroit and so on. So the game is flipped. We hold the cards. I'm all about it. They want more bids. I get it. I mean, do I want it just SEC and Big Ten? That's not what I'm saying. But the landscape shifted. It's not Greg Sankey's fault that the Pac-12 bankrupted themselves through a gazillion $1 million of rent and terrible deals in the Pac-12 network and things like that. So that's where I am. We are the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Tom Luginbill, don't you feel like we're going to a 16-team playoff sooner than later?
It sure looks like it, Bo. I mean, from what the discussions have been, and you're right, Ross Dellinger is totally dialed in on this, and he's on top of it each and every day. Let's not forget one thing, okay, and it's the most important thing. Forget the SEC, forget the Big Ten, forget the ACC, the Big 12. This is about one thing. This is about money. Expansion of the playoff makes more money. You think any of them care who's in the playoff? No. They don't care who's in the playoff. They care about money. And the more teams in, the more money to be made, the more the expansion of the season lays out. And at the end of the day, that's the bottom line. It's the dollar bill, and that's fine. And I hope everybody that's involved from that perspective is able to flourish, is able to enhance their athletic programs. I do hope that it touches, some of the lower tier Power 5 schools because of their conference affiliation, regardless of whether or not they'll ever be a college football playoff participant. I hope it helps the Group of 5. Now, I'm of the belief, Bo, I don't care about the Group of 5 when it comes to the college football playoff.
Me neither.
I stood on that sideline in the quarterfinal watching a varsity and a JV scrimmage between Penn State and Boise State. And that's not disrespect to Boise State.
Sure.
There's a reason why there are different levels of college football, because there are different talent levels associated with college football. So when we sit there and we talk about, oh, well, we got to let so-and-so in. No, we don't. No, we don't. Now, Bo, my only pushback is just because you're the SEC, just because you're the Big Ten, should not guarantee you 4 lost teams from your conference being into the playoff. I think that's fundamentally wrong. You can sit there and say, oh, well, we're the strongest conference. We've had the best schedule. There's a lot of data that actually says, from an SEC perspective, particularly in the non-conference, that's not true. There's a lot of data that will tell you that from a transfer portal perspective, we've evened the playing field. We've spread the talent more evenly amongst other teams. And that's why on any given Saturday, an Ole Miss can lose to Florida, all right, and be in the situation that they were in a year ago. And so to me, like, if we're going to sit there and say, oh, well, you're going to have the conference champion and then 4 at-larges. Okay, well, let's just say the last 2 teams there out of the Big Ten and out of the SEC, what would their records be? Because, Bo, in the Big Ten last year, you can say all you want. There were 2 to 3 teams that were really good. Everybody else was average to below average to bad. So what records are we going to allow if we're going to give all of these automatic bids just because of the conference affiliation?
I see where you're coming from. Tom Luginbill, ESPN's college football team. So here's where we are. There's a 4-4-2-2-1 model, which would be 4 automatic qualifiers to the SEC and the Big Ten, two each to the ACC and Big 12, and 1 to the top group of 5 team. All right.
Okay.
And then we've got another one that's the 5+11 format, which includes 5 automatic qualifiers for the top conference champs and 11 at-large bids. And that gets people – it doesn't bother me, but it gets people real hot and bothered because the shift of what it could look like for the SEC. Now, I think Sankey and maybe even the Big Ten Commission are also looking for some little bit different criteria from the College Football Playoff Committee. I think at the end of the day, Lugs, the SEC and the Big Ten is going to get what they want. How do you see it?
Very likely. I want to go back to that 5-11 deal. So you got 5 conference champions, or then including a group of 5 champion in that, correct?
Right.
Okay, then that needs to be appropriately seated, meaning the group of 5 champion needs to be last.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, now you've got what they would call 11 at-larges. Now, for me, if you're the SEC and you're the Big Ten, if you think you're so dominant and so differentiated from everybody else, why would you push back on that? Go out on the field and prove it, right? Go out and say, well, our conference, and maybe from year to year it would be different. Maybe you'd sit there and you'd say, well, one year, damn, the SEC might end up having 6 at-larges, but then the next year it doesn't work out that way, and
Sure.
they get 2.
Right.
And I think there's some, in my opinion, I think that we need to accept that there needs to be a part of this that is earned through performance. Because when we start giving automatic bids and things of that nature, then you start getting into the debate of an 8-4 team, and you're comparing that team versus, let's take SMU last year from the ACC.
Okay.
Would an 8-4 SEC team, all right, and let's just say last year, and let's just say that the non-conference is relatively poor, should they be in over a 10-2 SMU ball club? I think it's a great debate. I think you could probably point to positive negatives for both. But that 11 at-large, to me, is intriguing because it makes people earn it based off of merit. Now, you're going to have debate of resumes. You're going to have all those sorts of things. And that's the other problem with the College Football Playoff Committee, because you have a bunch of people in that room that have no business being in the room. So when you start to have those discussions, how educated are the people in the room having those discussions?
Sure.
And so I'm all for the expansion of it. I think ultimately the excellence will rise to the top. But I do think there's an element, in my opinion, where regardless of conference affiliation, it has to be earned. We can't find ourselves, because if you took the Big Ten last year and you said, okay, they get 4 automatic bids or whatever it is, do you know how mediocre 2 of those teams would have been?
Bad. Like average. That's not right. That's not what we're looking at. We're going to sit there and say, well, you just get them because you're the Big Ten. Right.
And so I see all angles on this. I get it. Trust me, I'm not naive. I've spent my life doing this. I think there's a bunch of different ways to skin a cat, but I still go back to the fact that you can divvy this up all the way, however you want. This is about money. That's it.
Yeah, no doubt. And they're also trying to figure out a way, as you know, by expanding the playoff to pay for swimming, golf, and track and field. All these sports
of course,
that just hemorrhage and lose money.
Especially the male non-revenue sports because you're not going to be allowed to cut any of the female non-revenue.
That's exactly right. So, you've got to figure out a way, women's volleyball, men's golf, track and field, all these sports that we love that kids get to compete and participate, but some of these sports need to go to kind of the club level on the university campuses. Okay, Tom Luginbill with ESPN. Now this could bode well for people like Tom Luginbill because he's called some amazing games and he loves to call big games and he's called big games. But this could work out in both his and his colleagues' favor. Let me throw this out. The SEC and Big Ten have discussed restructuring conference championship weekends to include play-in games for their final 2 automatic qualifier spots in the 4-4-2-2-1 model. This would involve matchups among their 3rd through 6th place teams with winners earning a playoff spot. Now, to me, that's delicious late in the year because you got an everything on the line scenario in early December, right after Thanksgiving, to go to the college football playoff. What do you think about that, Tom Luginbill?
So then you would expand from a 12-game regular season and then add an extra game that's not the conference championship game, if I'm hearing you correctly, in order to figure out who the other 2 teams would be. So you'd have 4 teams, and again, make sure I'm hearing you correctly. You'd have the 2 teams playing in the championship game, and then you'd have the next 4 teams playing each playing a game to figure out who those 2 at-larges are. Is that what you're saying?
And they would be
okay.
Here's what's cool. They would be on. I think more needs to be on campus. That's a whole nother debate for another day. But yes, and they would be on campus. So picture, December and Tennessee hosting a game, and LSU hosting a game, or Ole Miss and Florida hosting a game. I mean, that'd be pretty damn cool. Yeah,
it would be great. I mean, I think what would be interesting is how it would map out amongst the Power 4 conferences if not every conference did it.
Right.
So you're going to sit there and you're going to have this debate of, okay, well, we put ourselves at risk by playing that extra game to ensure we are one of the at-larges. And then the other conference is going to say, we stand on merit. We stand on our record to this point. We don't feel the need to play that extra game. And then how would you make decisions then if you're the committee? I like the idea of this. I think it would create unless everybody was doing it, like all Power 4 conferences did it, that's one thing. But if some didn't, I think it creates a lot of issues in the room because now you've got a whole other host of decision-making criteria that you didn't have before.
Yeah, and look, I think the whole Ole Miss versus Wofford or LSU versus whoever, I think those games are eventually going to go away, Luke's.
If they do, it's really, really unfortunate because those programs, both Group of 5 and FCS alike, are completely pretty much tied to having those games on their schedule to not just fuel their football program, but their athletic program.
Oh, yeah, because they get paid $1.5 million.
Really
Sure.
Yeah, that's horrible. For example, my son's at Eastern Kentucky. Okay, well, they're going to play Louisville out of conference. All right, well, that money for my P4 in the ACC to an FCS is hugely important. And it's not just with FCS affiliation, it's also with Group of 5 affiliation. So I think we've all kind of seen that coming over the next few years, over the last few years, and then coming certainly here probably sooner rather than later. I just don't like it because I think it hurts all of college football that, isn't involved at the FBS level.
Yeah. Okay. Tom Luginbill, National College Football Analyst with ESPN. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line, and the show is brought to you by Rick's Pro Truck, spray and bed liners, lift kits. Rick's Pro Truck with 3 locations in the metro area. All right. And I wonder if they'll ever shorten the regular season just by 1 game and to make the calendar more time to play either play-in games or real playoff games, Luke's. That's going to be interesting, too.
I would imagine the initial thought prior to getting to that point will be to move opening weekend to the second weekend in August and buy yourself 2 weeks before you ever get to Labor Day weekend. And then you try to fit everything in, from that perspective. Once you get to, that last Wednesday, which would be signing day before championship weekend, and all of that would now occur 2 weeks earlier so that you can create more time and more room. A lot of people don't realize when you look at what the FCS model has done with their playoff, with their 2014, their first round is on Thanksgiving weekend. That's their first round. So they buy themselves a lot of time. And then if you notice, their championship game, I think, is like the week of January 10th. So in order to survive that gauntlet, which would apply to the FBS level too, you have to create open time. You have to create weeks where you give your teams that earn a bye off, all right, then you play your games, and then eventually as you get to the quarterfinals and the semifinals, then you have another 2 weeks off before you play the championship game. You wouldn't be able to survive. And remember, they're playing with rosters that are smaller than the FBS rosters. Now, that's going to start to shift now with the settlement and everybody going to, 105 players. But there is something to be said for backing the start of the season up, which essentially would mean that everything would have to back up, right? You'd have to start your training camp earlier. You'd have less time off in the summer for your coaches, their families, for your players. You would probably have a little less time for a second summer session if you needed somebody that academically needed to be in that session. So, per usual, the devil's in the details, and there's a lot of stuff to work out.
Yeah, and I'm okay with the NFL model as far as allowing them to get together as a team in May, June, and July instead of waiting until August and do 2 and 3 day, like they're doing right now in the NFL, 2 and 3 day mini camps instead of saying
absolutely.
Yeah, instead of saying, hey, you just got this spring window to practice, and then you're with the strength and conditioning program for a few months, and then we all get back together like August 4th. I like the idea of them doing like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then letting the kids go, but doing that several times just to continue to, refine your skills and sharpen the sword.
Put them in helmets and shells.
Yes.
Helmets and shells. Give yourself an opportunity to come out of spring football, out of the spring football portal window, and it would almost be like the draft where they've got rookie minicamp, Only instead of them being rookies, they're your incoming transfer portal guys, and you say, okay, guys, we're all new here together. Spring football's done. The portal's done. We're starting our summer semester. Everybody's in-house, and we're going to spend 4 to 5 days on the field as a football team getting better. And I don't see any downside to that. That thing is, if we're going to turn over these rosters, 30, 40, 45 players each and every year, and you expect these teams to perform at a high level, the most difficult thing to do right now in college football is maintain chemistry, a clean locker room, adhere to your foundational pillars of what you want your program to be. Because when the roster is so transactional, it's hard to do that. Well, why not give these teams, these coaching staffs, more time on the field together to develop that chemistry, to develop what that locker room is going to be, and to actually put a better product on the field as a result?
I agree. Let's switch gears. Tom Luginbill on the show. Do you know if you're going to ACC Media Days yet? Because I think Bill Belichick could be a home run for as far as creating content.
I don't even know what my game crew is going to be this fall yet so far. So that's up in the air for me. But living in Charlotte, having ACC kickoff in Charlotte, yes, I will be there. I can't imagine I will not be assigned to that as I have been each of the last, 6 or 7 years. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. As I've seen, I think the schedule is shown. They have Dabo Swinney and Bill Belichick on the same day.
Oh, wow.
And so, it's going to be interesting to see how that thing unfolds and, can you imagine the turnout and the questions that are going to be asked and most importantly, not answered? Bill Belichick ain't putting up with any of that stuff. He might sit up there and say, on advice of my counsel, I plead the Fifth Amendment.
No doubt.
But you know what, though, Bo? You know what? He's created this environment.
That's right.
He's chosen to go down a different path, one that they have never traveled before in his personal life, which has it's kind of like Colorado, right?
Yeah.
When Coach Prime got to Boulder and this and that, well, don't start crying about it when things don't. You created this.
That's right.
And this is what the monster is that you wanted out there.
That's right.
And now a negative connotation comes out of it. And all of a sudden, it's, we don't want to deal with that. Well, tough. This was created internally. And now in this sport, people are going to ask.
Yeah. All right. So who's I guess the biggest personality is still Dabo in the ACC. Now, Cristobal's got some bite and tons of charisma and swagger, but he just hasn't quite won at the level he needs to yet. So I guess I'd go Dabo. Well, we got to get out of here, don't we? Damn it. All right.
Well, now, I'll tell you right now, do you want to know who personality is aside from Dabo?
Who?
The one that puts himself out there, is to the point, black and white, no gray area. He does not sugarcoat anything, and I love him. Brand Brown at Syracuse.
Oh, yeah. He's doing a good job, too.
Yep. Doing a great job.
Okay. All right, buddy. Have a great week. Thanks, Tom Luginbill.
We'll do. You too. See ya.
We are the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. And want to say good morning, welcome in. We're brought to you by Cover Source Solutions, family-owned business rooted in central Mississippi for residential and commercial HVAC, air conditioning, and plumbing. Cover Source Solutions. Call Cover Source Solutions if you need AC help because you want your house to be cool and cold and feel good. Cover Source Solutions for all your air conditioning install and repair.